Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Covid-19 Mind Management series. Today's video is going to be on depression and how to cope with that in these tough times. As you can see, I just got back from a run outside, maybe for the last time ever. Today in British Columbia, or yesterday, they just closed all of the provincial parks and hiking trails and trail access, and it's looking like it's shutdowns getting more than less. So being inside and restricted to certain areas seems to be increasing. And I actually had that moment today where on my run along the ocean side in Parksville, BC on Vancouver Island, I had like a sudden heart stop over thinking that I might not be allowed out of the house at all anymore, and that it tensed me. It caused a little bit of internal chaos and anxiety. So today is a good day. I've been trying to film this depression segment for 3 weeks in a row, and I keep I don't want to say failing at it, but yeah, that's what it feels like. I keep trying to jam too much content in. I keep rambling. I keep losing my train of thought while I'm trying to film. I'm trying to be off script with it. And today, I need it, and I think other people probably do. So I'm just gonna crush it out. Again, my name is Julia. I run Pretty Aggressive Recovery Coaching. I do recovery coaching for women who have been raised in a toxic, abusive, low nurture, or poorly bonded parenting environment. And I help women start thriving in their life, because just surviving is bullshit. So, as I said, today we'll be going over tips, tools, and tricks and healthy coping mechanisms to get past depression, and especially in this time of great need for everyone, where we have a global health crisis or pandemic, and there's a lot of social isolation and self-isolation and social distancing, which can be really emotionally and spiritually traumatic for a lot of people. I am going to be going slightly on script today to get this out, because the content is necessary, and having my own slight anxiety blip today, I feel like this needs to get done, so I'm going to crush it. So first things first about depression is knowing the difference between the grief exception, explained by Johann Hari in his book Lost Connections. If you are struggling with depression, have in the past previously have or have cyclical depression like I used to have, this book is incredible. He is profoundly articulate about the true sources of depression, as well as how to correct those parts of your environment, internal and external environment. So the grief exception, understanding that people go through grief due to job loss, due to massive changes in their lives. And being sad or experiencing grief or sorrow or periods of time of melancholy due to any circumstance or experience in your life is normal. It is fucking normal to have feelings of sadness for lengths of time, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. If you've suffered a great loss, you are allowed to have those feelings, and you are allowed to experience them, and you do not need to be put in a box and labeled as depressed. But the point is that there is a difference, there is a cap, and many people who don't have or haven't been raised with being able to develop healthy coping mechanisms for negative feelings can roll into a depression or have grief consume them and spiral out into a depression that colors all of their experiences in life. So this is tip number one, is get educated about depression. Depression used to be understood as an extreme opposite of anxiety. So anxiety is understood as experiencing uncontrollable worry or paralysis due to worry about future circumstances or current circumstances that feel out of your control. And depression was viewed as extreme sadness or feelings of sorrow due to things in the past that could no longer be changed. So regret. Depression is now better understood as experiencing a feeling of your own personal lack of value or significance in a future state or in a future at all. So someone who is experiencing depression is unable to picture a hopeful or solid or certain future of their own existence. So understanding that is really important when you get into a place where you can no longer imagine your own future or your place in the world, a significant or valuable place for yourself in the world. That's how we understand depression psychologically now. Now, I'm taking off my socks after my run. To cope with and not allow depression to spiral out of control, the second tip after getting educated would be developing perspective and watching your pessimism versus optimism. Now, a second book I would recommend looking into is Learned Optimism. And it actually, my brother gifted this to me in early university, and it changed my life, and has multiple times since, as I remember the tools from it and the understanding. People who have a pessimistic mindset live in a world of always and never. I never get this. This always happens to me. People who have learned or grown up with optimism or have been able to change their mindset to a more optimistic mindset are able to understand that it's a sometimes and maybe, and to thrive in that, to take advantage of the fact that things are not always or never. So this is something that helped me develop what I call fluid acceptance, which is kind of tip 1.5. Fluid acceptance was something I kind of came up with on my own after doing a lot of research and looking into Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. So a lot of it covers acceptance and accepting what is. And when I started, and there's even a book by a very good woman Buddhist, I can't remember her name, but the book is called Extreme Acceptance. And to be able to sit with what is and to not fight your reality, to not fight situations, to not fight the path of things around you. Now, I really do believe in accepting things as they are, to be able to look at them honestly and to be honest with yourself. But that didn't cover the amount of power and influence that I believe we have in our own lives, as well as what I know to be the fluidity of life, that things are ever changing, ever evolving, ever moving. The only constant in life is inconsistency. And I developed an idea or a concept of fluid acceptance, to know that just because something is the way it is right now does not mean it will forever be that way. And instead of fearing the inconsistency and fearing the chaos, it is finding a way to lean in to the opportunity of change and the opportunity of evolution. And the way to apply that to feelings of depression is to look at today and accept, today I am sad, today I am struggling. Tomorrow can be different. And even moving so far as tomorrow will be different. I can choose. And to believe that depression is permanent for you, or even rolling, like if you recover from this one and you have cyclical depression and it keeps happening to you, to believe that it will always be that way is the wrong way to utilize acceptance. That's not helpful. And that's one of the biggest things about recovery, is learning to use tools and concepts that are helpful, not just what people are giving you. So, on the topic of what people give you, one of my other tips for depression, we'll go tip 2. Tip 3? Tip 2. Tip 3. Tip 1 is get educated. Tip 2 is learning the difference between optimism and pessimism. And tip 2.5 is the fluid acceptance. Tip 3 is don't allow people to talk you into being fake grateful. So this is a concept where when people are depressed, one of the most often recommendations they get is to count all your blessings. Find what you're grateful for. Find your gratitude. If you are not actually grateful for the things in your life, which is usually why people become depressed even when they have a home and a family and clothes on their back and enough money in the account for food on their table and have all their resources and necessities, and they still become depressed, it's because you're living a lie. It's because you've allowed yourself to walk a path where your culturescape, society around you, you've allowed it to tell you what you should be passionate about, what you should love, what you should value. If you are finding yourself struggling to appreciate what you have in your life, you should probably start changing what you have and dig deep about what you really appreciate. Don't let the rest of the world tell you should be grateful for, even as controversial as it might be, a nice, perfect, knit little family with a home and a piece of property. If you would rather be traveling the world on a boat and homeschooling your kids and have a wife that's a bit of a sassy bitch instead of a super nice, kind woman, maybe you need to reevaluate how you've built your life. Don't be grateful for what everybody else tells you to be grateful for. If you're depressed, it's for a good goddamn reason. Internal voice. Tip number 4, changing your internal voice. And tip 4.5 is absorbing growth style knowledge or surrounding yourself with growth style information. And these two go together. So when you are talking to yourself, when your internal dialogue is toxic, this sucks, it's so sad, like everything's wrecked, I can't go out, COVID's so hard, it's changing the world, everything's falling apart, that's not helpful. You need to change your internal dialogue and start talking about yourself and the world in a positive, progressive way. And one of the hardest things to do is do that when everything else around you is negative on the outside of you. Our internal and external environments not only inform but influence each other. You have the power to change your external environment, what you choose to move towards and what you choose to push away. If you start surrounding yourself with positive talk, and it doesn't need to be woo-woo, like everything's fine, tell yourself you love yourself, write it on the mirror, give yourself mantras, manifest the proper energy. Like, no. Actually go seek out information that is positive, progressive, and forward-thinking in a voice that you connect to. Something either powerful or assertive or inspiring. Even find a speaker that you like, Tony Robbins or Andy Frisella or Jocko Willink. I love that guy. Find voices that you connect to that are giving you quotes and dialogue that you can absorb that help you feel more powerful, that give you a positive internal voice. Put it in your environment, osmosis, and then design your insides, redesign your insides to reflect what you think will help you move forward and move out of a dark place. Tip number 5 is mini goals, and then 5.5 is finding competence and capability versus trying to feel good and better. So mini goals, when you are in a very low place, this is something that really helped me. I had a friend of mine who also has dealt with depression offer me this tip long ago, setting mini goals. Whether you're at the point where the only mini goal that you can accomplish in a day is getting dressed or moving from the bed to the couch, set it, complete it, and the next day add a second goal, whether it's brushing your teeth or putting healthy food in your body. If you are at a higher functioning level, you have kids, you're stuck at home, goal one, set one day, set a schedule, discipline yourself. Today I'm going to do 1 hour of crafts at the table with the kids. Next day is I'm going to make healthy food from scratch instead of KD out of a box. And you set your goals so that you can start building your own competency and capability levels. This builds personal integrity, which builds self-worth. And you need to start leveling up every day with mini goals that seem insignificant, but every day you complete them, you will trust in your ability to do it better the next day. And this is different than the bullshit self-care of doing things that make you feel good and better. Going for a jog can make you feel better, so can doing heroin. But neither of those things, without goals, not sure what goals you would set for heroin, but for a jog, unless you are timing yourself and setting goals and building competency and capability, you're just wasting your time. You're just wandering in a circle. Having a glass of wine can make you feel good or better, but so can having 6. You need to do something that builds integrity and builds self-worth. This is the only way you're going to keep leveling up. Do things that are helpful for your internal environment. And I think last one is forced transformation from insight. So if you are going to be looking inside and forming insight and forming self-awareness, you are not allowed to stop there. You are not allowed to just develop the insight or just develop the self-awareness. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power, and you need to put it to work. So if you understand where your depression is coming from, you need to make changes. You need to look at the system. Just because you can see all of the functions, the cogs, the wheels, the mechanics, and you can see the problem, doesn't mean that's enough. So things like talk therapy can be, they can be eye-opening, but unless you do something about the information you have, you're wasting it. Put it to work. Make different choices. Change the mechanism. Change your habits. Change your principles. Okay, so this has gone on for almost 20 minutes. And this is the problem I've found, is I keep wanting to go further and further into these topics because they are topics that require detail and help and coaching. So I will say 3 things. I am going to make further videos on each of these topics, on each of the tips that I've shared for healthy coping mechanisms and tools and tips to recover from depression and help yourself out in this COVID-19 mind management pandemic, global health crisis, and the continuing lockdowns that we've been experiencing. I'm going to make further videos to explain each of these concepts to help people. And 2, if you need help, if you need coaching, contact me, email me, reach out to me. I am very available to help whoever needs it. I'm considering opening a couple spots for people who are financially struggling or economically struggling, so that people who really need it can get coaching, even when we've been all laid off and losing our jobs and losing our money and struggling to get EI. And then number 3, again, my name is Julia. I run Pretty Aggressive Recovery Coaching for women and men who have been raised with toxic, abusive, poorly bonded, or low nurturing parenting. You can find me on Facebook at Pretty Aggressive. You can find me on Instagram at prettyaggressive_official, and you can find me online. My website is prettyaggressive.net. Thank you very much. Put out into the world what you wish to see.